Hello, I hope you're doing well. I wanted to just talk about New Year. Well, New Year is almost upon us, and one of the things that people are often extremely excited to do for New Year is to create New Year's resolutions. And I'm here to say I don't like them. And the reason I don't like them is that I think that they put way too much pressure on us as people trying to achieve certain things, do certain things, particularly in language learning. I am not a fan of New Year's resolutions and haven't been for a long, long time. So, the reason why I wanted to share this with you is because I've been having conversations with people in my groups and I wanted to share it more widely. I see a lot of things online where people are saying they want to do certain things in the new year and they're going to wait until January and to do whether it's language learning, whether it's diets, whether it's gym, whether it's whatever it is. And the reason why, and there are a few reasons why I don't like it. The first reason is that it's an excuse to wait and to put off doing something and making a positive change. So that's the very first reason. And the reason why I think that's particularly potentially damaging, I'm going to say, because when we put something off and wait for a specific day, it adds additional stress and additional pressure to that day and to that then following week and month to basically make ourselves a rod for our own backs. And what I mean by that is that we set ourselves up for failure. So let's say, for example, 1st of January is a particularly bad day to start anything. The reason is that many people go out and they enjoy themselves over the festive season and they celebrate the new year coming. And so doing something the day after all of that is kind of an anticlimax. Then you start something that's actually usually something difficult for you to start doing because it's a big change. Now, if you make that change on 1st of January, then the likelihood is that you're not going to have a great first week of it. You may have a great week of it. You may be one of those people that does well in the first week, first 2 weeks, but then is that something that you're going to be able to maintain? And if it isn't, something that you can do or maintain, then when do you start again? And this is very often where I hear people say things like, oh, well, I'll have to wait till next year. Particularly with diets and things, that tends to be the thing that happens. With language learning, I'm not so sure. Sometimes maybe we just don't start again. Sometimes we do. Sometimes we maybe say, okay, well, next month will be the time, or next Monday. There's always a day. It's usually the start of a new month, the start of a new week. But I am going to say something that I think is, for me, really important. And I hope that it sort of chimes with you and your experience too. And that is, pick today to be the day that you start doing something. Pick a day that doesn't really have any particular significance, except for it's a day. Any day of the week that ends in Y is a fine day to start something new. And what that does, if you allow yourself that opportunity to just start on any given day, is that you are in control of picking yourself up and dusting yourself off and getting back on the horse if you fall off. And I think there's something quite powerful in being able to do that. I think it's really important that we can do something that's, first of all, something we want to do, and we can reassess things. It allows us, I think, more freedoms to reassess goals, to reassess what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, which I think are also very important things that I'm not going to get into the ins and outs of that in this live. But what I do want to do is say, don't hang everything on the 1st of January. 1st of January is just a day that ends in the letter Y, like every other day. And to allow that to be the big pressure point, the difficult thing that stops you from succeeding in your goals, whatever they are, whether they're language related or whatever, I think is one of the things that actually we sort of miss as a trick. And so I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions, and I'm not a big fan of the 1st of January for the start of something new. I think that if something's worth doing, it's worth doing any time. And a change in habit or a change in goals or something you want to achieve can be done from any day. So really, that's all I wanted to share this evening. I wanted to do it before the 1st of January. And I was going to talk about this, and I actually made a couple of videos the other day when I went out for a walk. And then I didn't put them together. And I didn't put them together because I had other things I was doing. But I decided that it was time. Thank you to Sam for encouraging me to make this video and come online now. Because yeah, really, I think it's worth sharing. I don't use the new year for anything apart from it's the start of a new year. And whether you celebrate it, don't celebrate it, whether you use it for anything else, enjoy for what it is, and definitely don't allow it to destroy any things that you want to do in the coming year, because let's be honest, if you miss a day or you miss a week, there's always a Wednesday or a Thursday that you can start, or even a Monday or a Tuesday or whatever day you want, and you can start again. It's not all over, it's not all lost. And sometimes part of the goal is actually finding out what works and what doesn't work. And there's no shame in finding out what doesn't work for you. In fact, it's one more step on the path of learning and finding out how you best learn and what things make sense to you as a learner. And I hope sharing this is useful for you and encourages you to do something positive. After all, doing something, the idea behind New Year's resolutions is not a bad one, in that it's starting something positive to make positive change for you and in your life. And I think there's some good to be had there. Let's just not let a silly date mess it up. Now, it's very late here, but I will absolutely have a look and see what's been going on. So in terms of my message, that was my message. But I'm very happy to answer a few questions if there are any that you have. I appreciate that I've not been around for a few weeks. As many of you know, I've been away. I was in Southeast Asia for 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks. And I went because organizing a conference means that you need to meet with people and you need to check out spaces and areas and meet with stakeholders and all that kind of stuff to make sure that you can get things working and to check that things will work. And so I was out in Thailand, Malaysia, and Singapore doing exactly that. And it was a very nice trip. I feel very privileged that I was able to take a trip like that. But it was also a very busy trip. I was often in meetings from 8 a.m. till 8 p.m., meeting with different venues, meeting with different stakeholders. And yes, so I was kept busy the whole time, pretty much. I had a couple of days off, but otherwise, that was it. I see some questions about specific dates for the conference. So thank you for those questions. Yes, the actual one of the things that we do when I go and meet with other people who are going to help out with the conference and also with venues is we checked out venues in Singapore, and now I am just waiting to hear back from those venues to have confirmation of dates that are still available, and also timings and pricing and all that kind of stuff. This is quite a long process, and it's something that often I will have ahead of time, but because it's Singapore, it's not close by. I can't easily move fast on some of these things, and can't get fast responses in the same way as I can, for example, if it's just down the road. Even then, it can be tricky. Singapore is a very busy place, and things change quite quickly. So we're just waiting for those final confirmations, and then I will be able to confirm with you what's going on. Let me see. Let me see, what does this say? Good to see you back. Yeah, nice to see you too. How's it going? Things are going well, thank you. What languages do I speak? Well, a number of languages. At the moment, just English. But but yeah, I mean, normally, yeah, I use a number of languages for work and for friendships and family and stuff. I use a variety of languages. I want to check something actually. How is the sound on YouTube with this new microphone? Is it any better? Is it worse? Is it? I can't see it doing very much. I just want to make sure it's actually doing okay for you. Can you hear me okay on YouTube? Is it? Okay, let me see. Hopefully I can fine tune it and get it working better. And fantastic. Okay, great. Let me see. I've just turned it up a little bit more so that you can hopefully get a better quality of sound. As one of the questions I got a lot is sound quality on YouTube. And so I hope I've remedied that now. Let me see. Other questions. How many years you manage? Okay, what, sorry, your... Okay, to learn a language at an advanced level. Yeah, it depends on the language, and it depends on where I am and what I'm doing. So there's not an easy way for me to so to do it. 1st of January, you'll start French. Okay, great. Good luck with the 1st of January date. All I'll say is, if anything happens that first week, I would hope you would feel encouraged now to pick it up again if anything happens, and to carry on. I always feel so bad when people feel discouraged by things not working out the very first week or first month, and then wait for a year or don't pick things up again. This is why I wanted to make this announcement before the New Year. You finally gave in and started Duolingo. Well, good luck with Duo. I hope the owl is kind to you. Let me see. Hello, everyone. Yeah, very nice of you all to join. Thank you so much. I know I've not been around for a few weeks, and last week I was hoping to be online. I hadn't really looked at the dates in advance, and I completely forgot it was the 25th of December. So that was completely unrealistic. And also, it's going to be the 1st of January, this Sunday. I may or may not be able to join actually on Sunday. I'm not sure. But the week after, I should be around. So yes, that should potentially work. Was there an announcement? Sorry, I joined. There was no announcement. It was kind of a last minute thing that I decided that I would do a live. So yeah, you didn't miss an announcement. Unfortunately, I didn't plan it this way. It was something I just realized that after a nudge from Sam, I realized that I needed to make this announcement before the new year, and so I just decided to come online and try out my new microphone on YouTube, and also to change positions a little bit. I'm in a different part of the room so that I can hopefully have better lighting, and hopefully sort of get things looking a bit better. but I feel free to give me feedback and let me know what you think. Okay, so I mean, I'm not going to stay around for too long this time because I think that was really what I wanted to do, and I've achieved my goal. And the light and sound are great. Thank you very much. Thank you. It's nice to have something behind me. Well, maybe I'll look at getting something behind me at some point. Yeah, at the moment these walls are quite bare, but maybe that might be something I can work on. Okay. Great setup as a podcast video. Oh yeah, thank you. Well, maybe that's something I could possibly do. Do something a little bit more, yeah, a little bit sort of, well, I was going to say professional, but I use the term very loosely. But yes, maybe I could look at doing something like that. Absolutely. Do you have any new language projects coming up? Very good question. Kind of. So I'm looking at Malay at the moment, and I've started playing around with Malay. I'm very conscious that we don't have that much free time at the moment. I've just come back from this big Asia trip, and that sort of knocked me out a little bit because I was extremely tired with the jet lag, and obviously after a lot of meetings, I was quite exhausted. But I'm back, and we celebrate 2 Christmases, so this will also eat into the time that I have to do other things, because we do the Christmas that many of you may know of, the 24th, 25th, and then we also celebrate Orthodox Christmas, which is on the 6th and 7th of January, and so we have the sort of traditional meals and things like that for that date as well, and then also New Year in between Christmases. So I probably will start more seriously after either after Christmas, Christmas number 2, or possibly after the old New Year, which is the 13th of January. We'll see how I get on, but this is why I say any day ending in Y is fine to start a project. It's something I don't just say to you. This is what I practice, and I do it because I really have noticed over the years that many people will just give up because things haven't quite gone swimmingly in the very first week or weeks of a New Year's resolution. I'm glad it sounds good. That's really good to know. So the microphone was a good investment. Fantastic. Thank you. How many words to learn a day? Depends on the language and what you're doing, but yes, depends how much you're studying, but it's not really necessarily effective to say how many words a day to learn, simply because if you're not using them and repeating them enough, you could learn 30, 40, 50, and then potentially just forget them all a week later, or forget a lot of them a week later. So depends on what kind of study regimen you've got, really. It's very personalized, these kinds of questions. Unfortunately, not very easy to give a blanket answer, and I'm definitely not in the business of giving blanket answers to people. I do my best to answer questions in an honest way, and one of the things I've noticed, particularly over the last year, I've been running these language learning therapy sessions, and what we see very typically is that actually every person has their own individual journey when it comes to language learning, and so do you. And so the cookie cutter idea of we just use the same mold for every single thing that we do, whilst it is appealing in a certain way, and definitely is more marketable and easier to sell. It's not necessarily how it works, and so what you'll find is that there are tweaks that need to be made. Sometimes some of the principles of language learning will hold true for a great number of people, and some courses will work for a great number of people, and some ways of learning will work for a great number of people. But, and this is the big but, that sometimes, many times, in fact, there are tweaks that need to be made so that it fits you as an individual and is tailored to your needs and your learning style and learning method, and also your lifestyle and how you how you live. These are all very important points. Okay. 6th of January. Yeah, so on the 6th, yeah, we have exactly 6th and 7th. So these are the days where we celebrate. Exactly. Yeah. Guten Tag. The video looks good and it sounds all right. Great. Do you have a favorite what, sorry? Non-Indo-European language. Merry Christmas. Do I have a favorite non-Indo-European language? I'm going to try and be as honest as I can. I do like all languages. It's true, but I have a bit of a thing for Turkish, and I think that's because it's a language I get to use in the Balkans, and also there are a number of Turkish words that are in my home language, Macedonian, and so I have a deep appreciation for Turkish, and so very often I will watch Netflix in Turkish, not almost always, but fairly often. I mean, if I watch Netflix, I don't get to watch very often, but if I do, I would say 80% of the time watch it in Turkish. So probably that would be, I think, probably the most logical answer to give. But there are other languages, non-Indo-European languages, that I particularly like as well. Let me see. Which language is the most useful besides English to you? Well, that's very easy, Macedonian, because it's the language I use most. So yeah, I mean, whilst English is useful, obviously, Macedonian is probably the most useful in terms of how often I use it and getting things done in my life, for sure, because it's the one I use the most, I think, in recent years, decade or so. Probably 17 years I've been speaking Macedonian as a home language, so it's a long time. Malay is easy because they use a lot of English when they talk. Yeah, so there's the sort of the Manglish as well that they talk about, which is kind of the Malaysian version of Singlish in Singapore, and that's a lot of things mixed together. But yeah, I did notice that when people speak, they tend to mix languages in Malaysia. I really quite like the people I found to be extremely hospitable, friendly, charming, and quite funny as well. Actually, I found Malaysians to be very happy to have a bit of banter, and as someone from the United Kingdom, we like banter. So yeah, I really liked that about them. Have you? What's this? Have you glimpsed any new approaches to learning based on the conversations you have in your language groups? So have I adopted any new things from myself? No, no, not necessarily. Not anything new. I mean, I've been in the business of language learning for a long, long time. So a lot of the things that I discuss or talk about, sometimes it's reminding myself of things that I've considered or done or practiced in the past. Sometimes, yeah, it can be that, but not necessarily new things that I've done. I think there are innovations, for sure. So, sort of talking through things, then maybe there are innovations that I've come across or discussed, and I think a lot of that is to do with technology. So using, for example, social media to follow content in the target language, or people who teach the target language sometimes as well. That's something that I think, as the years have gone on, it's been an easy way to create a linguistic bubble wherever I am in the world, so that I can always be in touch with the language, hear the language, and use it, and yeah, have contact really without trying. So absolutely, there's that, but not necessarily a new thing. I would say it's more reinforcements and innovations of things that I have been doing for many years. Do I think the language is the hardest grammar to learn? Depends which language you speak, or which languages you speak. So for me personally, I would go for a polysynthetic language, personally, for what I would consider to be particularly difficult for me to learn. So, yeah, like Greenlandic or something like that, because you end up with huge, long words that contain an awful lot of information. So probably that would be my answer. But it's kind of a bit picked out of the air, without a lot of consideration. But that's probably, for me personally, what I would find quite challenging to pick up, to be able to say basic things even. Okay. Okay. How many times do you recommend that you study a new language per day? These are questions that are difficult to answer in just one way. So it depends what you're doing and what you're achieving, how long you've got. So, like, I mean, you can do intensive language study, but it's only going to be as useful as it is while you're still using it. The great thing about intensive language study is that you can cover a lot of ground quite quickly, and if you continue using it into the longer term, you get the repetition you need to be able to retain a lot of that information. Not all of it will be retained, but a lot more than, say, for example, if you just stop suddenly and just use it once a week. What happens if you don't retain the language and you do just go down to like once a week after doing an intensive study period, is that you will tend to forget a lot of what you've learned, and so it becomes quite problematic, quite difficult. So how often, how many times you study a day, it would really depend on what your long-term outlook looks like for how you're able to continue using the language or not. So to give you an example from my own studies, I studied German extremely intensively in Germany. I was living in a German family. I spoke it every day. I was studying it in the very first 2 weeks, maybe a full-time job type things, like sort of 6-8 hours a day, and studying a lot of words. So I was covering about 130, 35 words a day. German obviously is related to English, so there are lots of words in common, so that did help. Then I was actually practicing it all the time, because people didn't really speak English. Well,
where I was. So it was also before the internet was a thing like it is now, and so I didn't really have the opportunity to speak. And so, yes, that was. Thank you very much for the Christmas gift, JR. That's very kind of you. Thank you. Merry Christmas to you too. It's very kind. So basically, when I did that, I then went and studied German in Spain, and then went and worked using German. And so I continued to continually speak the language and study it a lot and learn it a lot and use it a lot after my intensive study period. Now, if I contrast that with, my Estonian language challenge, which was a month of intensive Estonian study, the intensive study period worked very well to get me to a point where I could do an interview. I was doing 4 hours a day of study, and because I was doing so much intensively, I was able to retain quite a lot of information because I was thinking about the language all the time. And so that really helped. But I didn't really carry on using my Estonian. And so my Estonian went from sort of going up very quickly to going down really quickly. And so this is why I say it really depends on what you're doing. Tere õhtust, head uut aastat ja head uut aastat sinule. Yeah. Aitäh. Thank you very much. Do you think that people in the future won't learn any new language at schools or at home because of effective AI devices? Potentially there'll be a decline. Yeah, why? There could well be. I don't know whether that will be the complete tendency, though. I think it could be more challenging to get people to learn languages for certain things. But how far will AI integrate with day-to-day life, and will you still need to learn a certain amount of a language to be able to function? That's a debatable thing. Also, the health benefits to people learning another language and just general interest. And when you're off grid, for example, what do you do if you don't have access to these things? I think, yeah, there's possibly going to be a decline, but the fun and the enjoyment of learning languages is still there. And there's also, particularly I think for languages where it's a heritage language or part of your identity, there are definitely cases to be made for how that impacts individuals on a psychological level, as well, for the enjoyment of learning languages, but also understanding how certain concepts and ideas were discussed and transmitted through another language, and the idea of keeping something of history alive of the family. And look, a language can be learnt as something that's sort of just for reading and passive skills, but there's a lot to be said also for using it in an active way, and many people choose to learn a language in an active way. So would it be the complete demise? I doubt it. Will there be a decline? Yeah, quite probably. I would imagine there would be. It does get easier when you know. I was walking around in Malaysia. I went to a Tamil Hindu temple in Malaysia, and I could point my camera from my phone through Google Translate to translate directly into English what was written in Tamil on the walls. And there's something quite powerful about being able to do that, of course. But it's not the same as. So it's kind of like, would you still look at a Sudoku puzzle if it was already filled in, or would that, if you had the answers of the Sudoku puzzle, for example, at the back of a book, does that stop you from actually trying to do the Sudoku puzzle? There are lots of people that will quite content. You'd be quite content to just sit through and puzzle through the Sudoku puzzles in a book and not use the back to just cheat and write all the answers in. And so I guess the same could be said for language learning. It's the thrill of the chase. It's the understanding, the decoding, the putting the bits of the puzzle together to form a picture in one's head to see how things work and how things are represented. And so there's more to language learning than just, basic communications. And you could actually just say, even now without the technology, people are not learning as many languages at the moment anyway because of English and English's role as an auxiliary language. So who knows? And if you live in a community, for example, I mean, can you sit at a table and enjoy a conversation through AI in the same way as because how are they going to get puns or plays on words and jokes and things? I don't know how easy that would be. I mean, there are jokes that, for example, or things that I would hear or take part in sort of Balkan languages that I can't really explain so well in English in the same way, because it's tied to culture, it's tied to the language, and if you don't learn the language, you can't understand the culture in the same way, because certain things are just intrinsically linked. Language is the vehicle of the culture, so there are going to be people that will always want to dive into that, right? So yeah, that was a very long answer, I'm afraid, to a question, but I thought it was an interesting question. Okay. Let me see, JR, let me see. Do you feel like the Indonesian you learnt in the past helped you understand a little of Malay? Absolutely, I did. The Malay accent is very different and takes a while to get used to. Yeah, it is different. Some things are quite... the first thing that I noticed about Malay compared to Indonesian was in Malaysia, everyone says boleh, boleh, boleh for like bisa in Indonesian, for like it's possible, it can. So this boleh is used everywhere, and that was quite interesting to sort of hear that word being used instead of bisa. Boleh bicara dalam bahasa Melayu instead of bisa bicara dalam bahasa Indonesia. But a lot of the words, yeah, I could make out a lot of stuff, which was pretty cool. And I think that it will help in sort of converting my Indonesian to Malay, and also hopefully speed up the process a little bit in the beginning. But I never really got particularly great at the verb forms in Indonesian, which I think is the hardest part of the grammar that I came across, was getting the verbs right and really manipulating them well. So when I talk about the verbs, I don't mean obviously conjugations, because that's not an issue, but the prefixes and different forms of verbs and how they change is challenging, I think, in Indonesian and Malay. I'm guessing in Malay too. I've not really looked at Malay very much until now. So, but in Indonesian, yeah, that's probably the challenging thing, I think. Cool. Let me see if I learned Korean for understanding Korean YouTube, but I realized Korean YouTube isn't that interesting, and lost motivation. I'm sorry to hear that. That's it. It's interesting to sort of, when you first start looking at a language, sometimes you think that one thing's going to draw you into it and then it doesn't, and maybe exploring language for different motivation might be a solution, because there's often a lot more that can draw you into a language, and trying to fall in love with what it was that attracted you to the language, and then see if you can extrapolate more from those elements is probably the best way, I think, to really explore. Happy New Year. Thank you very much. Happy New Year to you too. Things are going well, thank you. Do you think that do you think that people, okay, yes, I saw that one. Let me see. Any other questions I can see? Okay, I can't really see any other questions that I can easily answer in the time that I have. Fortunately, it's quite late here, so I'm going to go to sleep very soon. And I'm very glad that I got to come on and talk to you, and always a pleasure to sort of talk. I really appreciate you taking the time to come and join me, and to join in this live. I thank you very much, and yeah, very soon I will be back to my sort of producing some videos, hopefully, as well. but yeah, if you have anything that you particularly want me to talk about, feel free to let me know in the comments, and I will do my best to answer. And yeah, thank you so much for your time, for coming, and I look forward to to speaking to you again soon. Take care. Enjoy the new year, wherever you are in the world. And remember, anything that you want to start can start on any day of the week that ends in Y. It doesn't have to be the 1st of January. It doesn't have to be a Monday. It doesn't have to be the start of a week or a month or a year. It can be any day you want it to be. Making a positive change is the important thing, and it's fine to fall off and get back up, dust yourself off, and get back on the horse and carry on. I do it all the time. So join me in just falling until I make it. Take care, everyone. Lovely to see you again. Bye-bye.